Hello, good morning. We're back for the daily workout and one of my favourite weeks already. This is the second time that we've done My Life in Recruitment, and we're identifying people that have been in the industry for quite a long time. I'm Ota Cripps, MD of the Recruiting Gym. I'm one of those. And this morning we've got Stephen O'Donnell, who's been in it even longer than I have. Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Good morning, Angela. Yeah, I've been in recruitment since Jesus was at school.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get into all of that. We're gonna work through your recruitment life, as it were.
Mm.
But we met probably through Louise Tryon's, thinking about it. It's always Louise that brings people together, isn't it? We've known each other for quite a while, but I didn't know your background. So let's go right back to the beginning. How
So
did you get into recruitment? And then we'll bring you up to today.
through the mist of time, actually, this morning on Facebook, I shared something about a job interview that I had way back. So I had three jobs before getting into recruitment from the age of 18, which were perfect preparation for getting into recruitment. The first one, or the first job in sales that I had, was selling advertising in the Strathclyde Police in-house magazine. So it was telesales.
That's so niche. Oh my
Very
goodness.
neat, very niche. So there was I'd gone into an office of 20 people. We all had different geographical areas, and we'd be calling local businesses to sell advertising. So I'd have everyone from the Royal Bank of Scotland down to the local chippy, and taking out adverts in this police magazine. So I did that for
So
18
can I
months.
just check? Did you say police magazine?
Yeah, the police magazine. The magazine was called The Guardian, and yeah, It turns out I found out that my incessant chatting was good for selling, so I could sell. My accent changed quite a bit because I had a very broad Scottish accent, but I found that. Well, I found that if I put on a posh Glaswegian accent where they talk like that, then it worked better, and people you had more of an air of authority because people couldn't see me; they couldn't see I was only 18, but it worked and I made sales. So it was the sort of place where people would turn up on a Monday morning to start, and come break time at 10:30, they would go out for a cigarette and not come back. So it was that kind of hothouse environment. So I did that for 18 months. I left to go and sell cable TV round very rough estates in Glasgow at a place called Drumchapel, which was an eye opener, going into people's homes and selling them cable TV. And then from that, I got a job selling fax machines. So, and this was before fax machines had caught on.
I was gonna
So
say,
I'd be
yeah.
going round industrial estates trying to, do demos and persuade them that a fax machine was the future of communications, and of course, long since obsolete. But from doing telesales, from selling to people in their homes, and selling to businesses, all of those things were perfect preparation for going into recruitment. And I started with a company called HMS, Hester Management Services, which was the biggest agency in the country at the time. I think they had 250 branches,
Yeah.
and I was in senior appointments, as they called it. So it was all sales and engineering and managerial type positions that I'd be recruiting for.
Fantastic. So yeah, such a great grounding. And that was always something when I looked for a recruiter. I didn't look for recruitment experience, but I did look for some sales experience and people. And if you've worked B2B and also with the general public, that was perfect. So you'd got yourself set up
Yeah.
brilliantly for there. Okay. So how did you actually get the job at HMS?
It was pretty much the same as so many other people tell. You go and register with an agency, and they say those magic words, "Have you ever thought of working in recruitment?" To which the answer is absolutely not. Who thinks about working in recruitment? I didn't even know this job existed. But at that time, when I started in recruitment with HMS, you do the fortnight training course down in Leicester and all of that. But once you start speaking to or trying to phone companies to persuade them to use the service, so many companies had no idea that the recruitment companies existed, recruitment agencies existed.
Yeah.
They all did their own recruitment. And part of the first conversation was to explain what an agency did and why they should pay, several £1,000s for you to find a candidate when they could just put an ad in the paper and find someone themselves. And of course, demonstrate the value of that. So yeah, it was an education was a big part of the cold calling technique that you were trained to do.
Definitely. Okay. So we've got you in HMS. Yeah, I remember those, one of the biggest at that point. So let's now take you through your recruitment life and dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the good, start with the positives.
So the good is I'm a born nosy Parker.
Hmm.
I love speaking to people. I love hearing people's stories. Sometimes it's a bit of a drawback because I've been in interviews and I've interviewed thousands of people over the years. Sometimes they tell me their stories and I get kind of caught up in their stories. I found myself in interviews welling up and having to, extra blink because I feel like I'm getting a bit choked up because people, they share things with you they wouldn't tell their partners or their best friends or their parents about how they feel their job's going, their career's going, what they're getting paid, all of these things, and it's a really intimate space. So when you're sitting in a room one to one with someone who's maybe at a crisis in their career, and they're spilling their worries on you, it's hard not to get caught up in that. Some people develop a shell and they become pretty tough about it. I was never able to do that. So sometimes I'd go on crusades with candidates that I thought were great, but were frankly unemployable. But it meant that you get a
That's
real
the term, isn't it? Crusades, because
yeah.
you're right. We get those people. I'm determined to get you a job. If any of you haven't seen the film Dave, are you aware of the film Dave with Kevin Kline?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because the opening scene is all about that. Everybody gets a job today, and he's works in a recruitment agency. So yeah, great recruitment film for that one. Okay, so there's you on your crusades with these people, trying to get the best out of them and make sure that hopefully everybody gets a job. And that is right. That empathy side is the good part about
Yeah.
our industry. Let's not lose that. Hey.
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, I do love candidates. I can be a bit on the soft side. I had at one point I had 20 factory operators working in the Bars Iron and Brew factory, and one guy couldn't get to work because his motorbike was broken, and I needed him to do this shift, and so I lent him mine, and it took me 3 weeks to get the bloody thing back. I'd literally I had to go and steal my own motorbike back from him. So
Oh my
that's
goodness. I mean, we used to go out and just go and pick them
I
up
was.
and take them,
Yeah.
but then we
Yeah.
were working in a small radius. So
And back in those days when sometimes it was impossible to get CVs to companies, there was one time when I drove through the night with the CV of a candidate to a company so that they had it before, and because they didn't have a fax machine,
just about to
there was
say,
no email. So and again, going back to those days, whenever a company was laying off staff, I would stand outside the factory gates with a sign, for the type of people I was looking for, or I'd go to the nearby pub, or I would join the Industrial Chemists Association or the Plastics and Rubber Association, and I would turn up at their meetings and try and solicit candidates or employers that way. So yeah, you would do all these things. One thing I distinctly remember is I used to the Glasgow Herald was where all the jobs were advertised up here, and on a Friday. So on a Thursday evening, I'd park outside the Herald building, and about 10:30, the first copies of the next day's paper came off the press. So I'd get a copy, I'd go home, and I'd mark up all of the jobs that I wanted to canvass on the companies and the jobs I wanted to phone them and say, let me handle this vacancy. So I'd phone them all like from 7 a.m. in the morning, just to get them on before everyone else. And the last thing I would say is, look, you're going to get lots of calls from other agencies. Tell them I'm on the case and you don't need their help. It's all covered. Stephen O'Donnell's doing it. So
that is another level of proactivity. I mean, yeah, we all used to do it. Grab the adverts, call the companies, but to get it the night before, to have that level of knowledge to say, I've got to be in there first thing, and how to get hold of that paper, that is brilliant.
it seems a bit mad now, but yeah, I did do that.
But that's the thing, isn't it? We are a little bit mad. Some of us in recruitment. We will. It's not necessarily go the extra mile, and yes, I hope that we do that. But it's the lateral thinking. That's what I love about recruitment. That's the good about recruitment. There's always a different way of approaching something, and if you can come up with something different like that, yeah, that gets you ahead of the game. Okay, what about the bad then? What would you say is the bad in our industry?
So I still bear the scars of this, and I feel a bit bad bringing it up. But anyone who's owned a recruitment agency or been a director of a company and has had a bit of a tussle with their fellow directors will relate to this. And this, to be honest, happens in recruitment more often than you'd like to think. So I had an agency in the 90s. We started it in 93. That was the last time I had a proper job. So I left Search to set up a new agency with a guy called Bruce Fitzgerald. And Bruce was 10 years older than me. So he was the majority shareholder in this business. And we grew it from from 2 guys in a room to 50 staff with 2,000 temps assembling PCs for IBM. We were turning over to £12 million. So the business was going great. But I then learned that he had a sneaky plan to move all the assets of the company to another company I didn't have a share in. So it ended up in the High Court. I had to have injunctions, and there was a severe falling out. And at the time, I had no real idea. I had no experience of that sort of thing happening, and didn't know that lots of people in recruitment go through the exact same thing. So it's something that I think should be spoken more about, because I think people who are directors and part owners and shareholders in recruitment companies should appreciate their standing in the business before those kind of things can come up. And it's often the case that you set up a business with someone that you thought was a good friend or a good colleague, and there's no written agreement, there's no shareholder agreement, and a bit like not having a prenup. And when it goes to pieces, it goes to pieces, and it can become a real tussle. So I definitely still bear the scars of that. It was horrendous at the time. But I can laugh about it now. Now, as a postscript, Bruce, this will sound terrible, but a year or two later, after I left, the company went bust. I'm not saying it was on account of me leaving, but the company did go bust. I didn't celebrate. I might have had a little drink, but a year after that, sadly, Bruce, who was only 49 at the time, had a heart attack and died on the treadmill at his gym. So it was one of those things where I was torn, if I'm honest, because on the one hand, I'd been done over, but on the other, it was tragic. So I did go to the funeral. It was one of those, but again, when you have someone that you've been in business with and really close to business-wise, going, is one of those situations that you can't imagine happen, but it really does.
Well, the stress of recruitment, because, and I'm guessing the stress of what he was doing as well. He may have gone through that, but it was obviously having an effect on his body at the same time. And that, I hate to say, there's a little bit of karma coming in there, isn't it? It's like you reap what you sow, and therefore the grace of God go I, because that could have been you still in that situation and getting stressed with the business going and everything. And I'm sure there were lots of people during COVID when we didn't know what was happening with businesses, and the amount of stress that directors took on. And there probably was a few partnerships.
Anna's just said there, crikey, keep it light. We're not saying Bruce deserved it. We're just saying, it is the good, bad, and the ugly. So that was certainly on the.
This is what recruitment is, and we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that links into the ugly as well. Those relationships and where people do you dirty. And you're right. I can already think of quite a few. I'm not going to name them. That I've come across along the way. That are renowned, and unfortunately that's their branding now, that they do it to everyone that they go into business with. So but we certainly need to be aware about it, and you're right, we should talk about it. Right, okay. So is there an ugly as well? I don't want to ask now. Like Alan said, oh my god, that was the bad. What's the ugly?
Well, so actually there's a funny story that could relate to the ugly, and if I'm going to grab a prop.
Oh, go for it. You've got enough behind you. We get to see that amazing. Is it one of those things that does that in behind your head that gets?
What, this? No. So on the 13th year of the Noras, I thought 13, unlucky for some. What we should have is we should have a wooden Nora, like a wooden spoon for the most terrible recruitment website that there is. And because all of the National Online Recruitment Awards is about celebrating excellence and the best in online recruitment practice from agencies, employers, job boards, publications, and so on. But we know that there are terrible sites out there. And I thought, well, if a wooden Nora, we'll give a wooden Nora to something that's obviously terrible. On reflection, actually, you shouldn't be celebrating something that's ugly, something that's not good. You shouldn't be pointing at it. You should just point at the things that are good, and everyone takes inspiration from that, and they know what good looks like. But so this is the wooden Nora. So I had this carved, and the wooden Nora was presented to. It was a job board that was built for the Department of Work and Pensions. And it was terrible. Now, there was a very large, I won't mention them, there was a very large job board company that built it for them, who know exactly how to build a great job board, but they were paid something like £16 million to build this website, and it was atrocious. And it was terrible for job seekers, which is the primary aim of the NORAs to identify. And so when we announced who the winner was, I was hoping that someone from, the DWP or maybe a minister or an MP would come along and accept it reluctantly, but no one. There was a tumbleweed when we announced the winner because no one came up to accept it. So that's why I've still got the wooden trophy.
So there was only the one. I love that in retrospect. Maybe we shouldn't be highlighting the
Yeah, no, we won't do that again.
But that's the Razzies, isn't it? Every year at the Oscars, and it had that reputation. So the week before the Oscars, or a couple of days, you have the Razzies, which are the raspberries, which are the awful films and actors and everything. And what I love is sometimes there's a major actor or actress that's nominated, and they do go and they just laugh at themselves and they pick up their reward. It's back to that sort of all PR is good PR, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Pick up from there. Okay, right. Last thing then. Just want to share this because we have asked you this question before, because we had the first run of this a quarter ago, 3 months ago, and the Ask the Coach at the time was actually at the same time. So we said, okay, well, let's ask the coaches as well. What would be their top tip for joining the industry? So I have already asked you that. Sorry, I caught you mid-flow there. So your top tip at that point was, what's my differential? What can I bring? How am I different that I could bring to a company? So I'm going to have to ask you for your second tip this time. So what would be that tip for someone joining the industry?
ABB. Always be branding. I know Alan would say ABC, always be closing. But these days, whatever you would do, you need to be memorable. You need to be distinct. You need to get your message across and stand out from everyone else who's trying to do the same thing. So you'll see, for example, this logo here. You'll see some logos behind me there. You'll see me wearing green specs because they stand out more. All of these things are specifically aimed at making me a little bit more memorable than I would be if I was just some old baldy guy with a beard on screen with a virtual background. So I'm trying to make myself memorable, and I'm trying to make sure that if you're paying attention to what I'm saying, that some of it is going to be absorbed, some of it is going to get across to you. So ABB, always be branding.
And it's at that point I realised that I haven't put the branding around this today. So it's magically appeared, and we've got the Firefish logo on this because Firefish actually sponsor the details and things like the call to action. We have to do this for every show, and I just forgot this morning. But there you go. There's the green button at the bottom of the daily workout. Because you're right, it's all that subliminal stuff. You've got the Noras above your head. People are going to remember that. So the individual personal brand can make a huge difference to your career in recruitment. It might not have as big an impact if you're with a big agency at the moment. If you're working within a big company, an in-house team, then that brand sort of supersedes it. But you can be working on yours all the time, can't you? And building it, and it'll help you for the next one and the next one.
If anyone's wondering who that fella is there, that's the last candidate I sent out for interview.
I thought it was Bruce. No, sorry.
That's really dark. Oh,
you took it there. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stephen. I've loved that trip down your memory lane, picking up all those things that have happened for you within your recruitment lifestyle. We're back at 2 p.m. tomorrow. We've got a gentleman, I think he's in Pennsylvania. I've probably got that wrong now. So note the time. You can have a lie-in. We're not going to get you up at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be back at 2 tomorrow. And then again, back at 9 o'clock on Friday morning with the wonderful Alan. He's going to be with us. I don't know how that one's going to go, but we will find out. There's always something new I find out about Alan. I've worked with him for over 25 years, and there's always something new that turns up. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stephen. Loved that. We'll speak to you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.